In Sprint 2 for Team Neukoelln, our goal was the integration of the PSP logging components into a single fluid interface and integration of the metrics into a PSP summary report. Our Scrum Master this sprint was Antonio Roca, and our Git Master was Robert Lincoln. This sprint we had 3 primary user stories, the first of which, user story 42, the PSP interface integration. For this, our primary contributors were Jeff and Antonio. All of our tasks for this user story have been completed. For user story 42, in Memoranda, we combined all of the separate PSP buttons from Sprint 1 into a single PSP button. This launches a tabbed interface that contains all of our PSP logging components. Here under the Estimates tab, we see a list of estimate records. Each estimate records the estimated lines of code, the estimated time for a specific module and phase, as well as comments. Additional estimates can be added through the toolbar and by completing the estimate worksheet dialog. The defect log tab contains a list of defects for this project. Here we see a couple of defect records that will show the type of defect, phase injected, and phase removed, time to fix the defect, and comments about the defect. Additional defect logs can be added from the toolbar and completing the defect log dialog. The actual lines of code tab will record the total lines of code for the current project. The business value that we added to Memorandum from user story 42 was providing a improved user experience. So all of our PSP time log metrics are accessible through the single button and a tab workflow. That brings us to our next user story, which is user story number 4. Story number 4, our primary contributors were Ty and Robert, and all of our tasks for this user story have been completed. In Memorandum, we added an additional tab to our PSP tab panel for summary, and here we have a series of tables that summarize the data that has been logged in our PSP metrics. Our first table, the time and phase table, shows us our estimated versus actual time logged as additional to a breakdown per phase and the percentage of time that we spend in each phase. The defects injected table shows us what phases we are injecting defects, and the defects removed table shows us which phases we are removing defects. And then our actual lines of code summary shows us our estimated versus actual lines of code, in addition to the lines of code per hour and the defects per 1,000 lines of code. The value that this adds to Memorandum is being able to easily understand all of the different logs for the PSP process that have been recorded. You can see a summary of all of that data in our summary tab. That brings us to our next user story, which is user story number 19, project tags. Primary contributors for user story 19 was Antonio and Yves. All of our tasks for this user story have been completed. In Memorandum, we can add tags to projects so that we can easily reference or associate a project with a specific keyword. So here we have this add tag button where we can choose what project we want to add a tag for, and then we can enter that tag, and this will add that tag to that project. And this lets us, what this lets us do is improve the value that it adds. Is it lets us improve our estimated lines of code and our estimated time values by going to the PSP menu, searching projects by tag. So if we had a red tag, and we can search, and it'll show us projects where this might be related to some tasks that we've done before, and we can look at projects where we've had that and get better historical results. that match our estimates to improve our estimates for our PSP process. And that concludes our presentation of the new features added in Sprint 2. And as we completed all the tasks in our user stories, we feel that we did meet our sprint goal for Sprint 2.